He handed me a trash bag and said, "It's time you leave. My new family needs peace." He didn't even look back. Just turned around and walked into the house like I was never part of it. I stood there, 16 years old, in my old hoodie and house slippers, with my hands shaking and my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the rest of his words. It was cold. The kind of cold that doesn't just hit your skin, it seeps into your bones. I looked down at the bag, my clothes thrown in like trash. No suitcase. No explanation. Just a father's decision to make room for someone else. His new wife was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, that same mocking smile she always wore when I was around. Like I was the mess she couldn't wait to clean out. The house behind me, once filled with my mom's laughter and birthday balloons, was now just an empty house. My room, painted over. My photos, taken down. My presents, erased. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Just silence. A silence I'd gotten used to ever since he remarried. I walked barefoot down the street, gripping that plastic bag like it held my whole life. Each step hurt, not just because of the cold pavement but because I knew I wasn't going back. I knocked on my aunt's door, scared she might not answer. But she did. And she pulled me in, no questions asked. That night, lying on her couch with a blanket around me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything. My dad didn't call. He didn't check. I was a forgotten daughter. A closed chapter. But I didn't cry. I promised myself, one day he'd knock on my door. And that day came. My aunt let me stay, but I could tell she didn't have much herself. She had 2 jobs and a small apartment, but she gave me her old pull-out couch and a pillow that smelled like lavender. That couch became my world. It creaked every time I turned, but it felt safer than the big bed I used to have in my dad's house. At least here no one slammed doors in my face. I got my first job at 17, serving coffee and wiping tables at a tiny diner on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy. The lights flickered sometimes, the uniforms smelled like fried food, and the regulars paid in change. But I didn't complain. I needed it. I'd wake up before sunrise, take 2 buses, and work through double shifts just to earn enough for rent and groceries. No one called. Not on my birthday. Not on Christmas. There were no surprise visits, no "I miss you" texts. My dad never reached out. I used to keep my phone charged just in case, but after a year of silence I stopped waiting. I realized no one was coming. I was alone. I wanted to go to college, even if it was just the community one a few blocks away. But even that felt like a mountain. The tuition was low, but not low enough. I sold my old phone for textbooks. I skipped meals just to afford bus fare. I even returned a birthday sweater my aunt bought me to buy a used laptop. One night, after the rush at the diner, I sat in the back wiping ketchup off the counter when a coworker named Lisa slid me a napkin. "You ever think of doing this online? Social media stuff? Marketing? You're sharp." I laughed. I didn't even have Wi-Fi at home. But her words stuck. I started watching free videos, reading borrowed books, and staying late at the diner to use their internet after closing time. Every dollar I saved went into learning. Some nights I'd hear the cooks joke in the back. "She thinks she'll be rich one day. Sweetheart, clean those plates first." They laughed loud. I laughed too, just so it wouldn't hurt as much. But I didn't stop. I had no safety net. No family backing me. Just stubbornness and a quiet voice inside saying, "You're more than what they left behind." So I kept going. Scrubbing tables by day, learning about branding, ads, and content by night. I didn't even know what I was building, but I knew I had to build something. Something that no one could take away. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was chasing a future where I never had to knock on someone's door again. It started small. Really small. I didn't have the money or education to launch anything big, so I did what I could with what I had. I made flyers on that old laptop and printed them at the library. Tutoring, cleaning, pet sitting, affordable and reliable. I stuck them on lampposts, church doors, and corner stores. At first it was just one client. A woman who needed her dog walked while she worked night shifts. Then came a neighbor who needed someone to help clean out her attic. Then another who wanted her son tutored in math. I never said no. I worked 7 days a week, rain or shine. There were days I got home with my back aching and my shoes soaked. I remember once I was scrubbing someone's kitchen floor while their dog barked nonstop, and I thought, this is it. This is my life. But I didn't quit. Word spread slowly. People liked that I showed up on time, that I cared. And when people trust you, they talk. By the time I was 21, I had more clients than I could handle alone. So I hired 2 girls from the diner. Lisa was one of them. We cleaned, we walked dogs, we tutored kids, we fixed broken fences. But the real turning point came when I helped a small bakery boost their sales by promoting their cupcakes online. I took photos, ran their page, made flyers. Their business tripled in 6 months. That bakery owner cried in my arms and said, "You've got a gift." And that's when it clicked. I didn't want to just help businesses. I wanted to build them. I rebranded everything under one name, Fresh Rise Digital. It was messy at first, but I kept learning, improving, and getting clients by word of mouth. At 25, I signed my first big client, a mid-sized clothing brand looking to go fully online. That contract alone paid more than I used to make in a year. I used that money to buy my first home. It wasn't a mansion, but it had a small porch, a quiet street, and most importantly, it was mine. The local paper ran a story on me. From cleaner to CEO, the girl with nothing builds something big. People congratulated me like I won the lottery. But luck had nothing to do with it. People called me lucky. But I built this with broken hands and forgotten birthdays. I built it with blistered feet and missed meals. Every contract, every client, every lesson, I earned it all. Still, through all of it, my phone never rang. My dad never called. Never wrote. Never even sent a message. Until one morning. I was sipping coffee on my porch, enjoying the quiet, when I saw a car pull up. It wasn't fancy. Just an old sedan with one of the back windows taped shut with plastic. The door opened. And there he was. My father. Looking older, tired, and standing on my porch. I stared at him from the porch, coffee cooling in my hands. 10 years of silence, and now here he was, just standing there like we'd spoken yesterday. Behind him, his wife, Cynthia, the woman he left us for, stepped out too, her lips tight, eyes scanning my house like she didn't want to be there. 2 teenage boys followed, shifting uncomfortably, not making eye contact. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I waited. Then my phone buzzed. A text. "Hey, can we talk?" He sent it from the car just moments before stepping out. I looked up again and he gave a small smile. Not warm, not regretful. More like he was trying to act casual. Like this wasn't a moment he should have prepared for years ago. "I figured it was time," he said. "You've done well for yourself." I didn't say anything. He glanced back at his wife and kids, then cleared his throat. "We're hoping you can help us." The words dropped like cold water. He went on like it was a normal conversation. "The boys both got accepted into college, good schools too. But, well, things have been hard lately. You know how the economy is. We thought maybe you could contribute. Help cover their tuition." I felt my spine stiffen. 10 years. 10 years without a birthday text, a check-in, a single acknowledgement that he had a daughter still breathing somewhere in the world. And now he was here in a too-tight suit, asking me to fund the life of the new family he threw me away for. I looked at the boys. They seemed embarrassed. One of them kept looking at his shoes. The other just stared at the sky. They weren't cruel. They were just born into a house where I didn't exist. I looked back at my dad, waiting for him to at least say it. Something. Anything. An apology. A whisper of guilt. But instead he gave me a small chuckle and said, "Honestly, I think I made the right call back then. Look at you. You turned out great because I pushed you out. You were soft before, but it toughened you up." I blinked. For a second I wondered if I misheard him. He thought he made me. That throwing me out barefoot at 16 like garbage in a bag was some kind of life lesson he deserved credit for. He stood there not as a father asking forgiveness, but as a man seeking praise for his cruelty. My jaw tightened. I swallowed hard. It wasn't sadness I felt. It wasn't even anger. It was a quiet, heavy realization. He didn't come to reconnect. He came to collect. And in that moment I knew I wasn't that forgotten daughter anymore. And I wasn't going to play the role he assigned me either. He stood there on my porch speaking about tuition and tough times, but all I could see was that little girl he left behind. The girl with a backpack too heavy for her shoulders, standing in the cold while the door locked behind her. As he talked, I wasn't really listening. My mind had already left the porch. It wandered back to a night years ago, one I tried hard to forget. I was 16. The house had been loud all day, full of guests for Cynthia's baby shower. Pink balloons, cupcakes with tiny rattles on top, laughter echoing from every room. But not mine. I had been told to stay upstairs. This day is about the new baby. Don't make it weird, my dad had said. Cynthia didn't want awkward energy around her guests. So I sat on the floor staring at the last photo I had of my mom. It was creased and worn, kept in an old shoebox under my bed because Cynthia didn't want pictures of the past around the house. My mother's soft eyes looked back at me through that photo and I clung to it like a lifeline. I wanted so badly to be seen that day. To be a part of something. A week later I gathered the courage to ask, Dad, can I stay at least until prom? I remember his face so clearly. The way he laughed, not cruelly but casually like I had said something silly. He ruffled my hair and said, You'll survive. Life's not about dances and dresses. You'll thank me one day. That was the last real conversation we had. And now here he was standing outside my house asking me to save the children he actually raised. The ones he bought cakes for. The ones he took pictures with. The ones who never had to hide their feelings or their family. I remembered the nights I stayed up listening to the sounds downstairs. Family dinners I wasn't invited to, bedtime stories told to children who didn't know I lived right above them. I remembered how when I'd come down for water the laughter would pause. How Cynthia's smile tightened and how Dad always said, Can you give us some space? They always needed space from me. I remembered scraping together money to buy a second-hand dress for a school dance, only to realize I had no ride. No dad waiting with a camera. No one who cared if I went or stayed home. And yet I still used to whisper good night under my breath, hoping he might hear. Hoping he might care. Why wasn't I enough? That question haunted me for years. I asked it every birthday he forgot, every test I passed without applause, every time I got sick alone in a cold room. And now, as he stood on my porch with his hand out, not in apology but in expectation, I knew something he didn't. I may not have been enough for him. But I had become more than enough for me. I stood there on the porch, the weight of my father's words still pressing down on me. He was still standing there waiting for me to make a decision, as if it was as simple as agreeing to cut a check and send them on their way. His wife, Cynthia, adjusted her sunglasses nervously, glancing between the two of us, clearly uncomfortable with the silence that hung in the air. The boys, those two strangers who were supposed to be my brothers, shifted awkwardly, clearly feeling the tension too. But I wasn't going to give him what he expected, not right away. I needed to make him feel something. I'll think about it, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the anger that was boiling inside me. Come on inside, I'll make us some lemonade. He smiled like he had won. He truly thought he had come to the right place, that I'd cave, that the years of silence would somehow be forgotten in the face of a small favor. He thought I'd fall back into the role he left me in. The forgotten daughter, the one who lived in the shadow of his new life. I turned and walked inside without waiting for his response. I needed a moment. I quickly made the lemonade, nothing fancy, just the basics. I needed my hands busy. My mind racing. I told myself I'd give him a little hope, then crush it. Not with anger but with truth. After a few minutes I stepped back outside holding the pitcher and glasses in one hand. But I wasn't just carrying lemonade. I had something else for him. His smile widened when he saw me approach, and I noticed how his eyes brightened as I walked up the stairs toward him. I set the pitcher down on the table and for a brief moment I made the mistake of thinking maybe this was just an awkward situation. Maybe we could just move on. But then I reached into my bag and I pulled out a thick envelope. His smile faltered for just a second but he recovered quickly. I handed it to him without a word. He took the envelope, his fingers brushing mine for just a second. I could almost see the wheels turning in his head. He was expecting something, a check, a promise. The moment of suspense seemed to stretch on for a few seconds longer than it should have. I didn't break eye contact. He opened the envelope with a quick flick of his wrist, the same way he always opened letters from work. Inside was a printout of a receipt. He glanced at it and I saw his confusion. His eyes darted to the top of the page, then to me. He was trying to understand why there wasn't a check. Then he read the line that hit him like a slap. $10,000, donation to the college fund for displaced youths. His face twisted in confusion. What is this? I took a deep breath and spoke slowly, each word sinking in like a stone thrown into still water. It's a donation. A college fund. But not for your boys. He blinked and the realization began to hit. For who then? I nodded, my voice steady, but the emotion behind it was impossible to hide. For kids who were thrown out just like I was. Kids who had nowhere to go, no one to support them. Kids who were forgotten just like me. And I did it because I know what it's like to have nothing. There was a long silence as he stared at the printout, his expression changing from confusion to disbelief. He stopped himself, unsure of what to say. His face was red now, not from the heat but from something else. Anger? Regret? Guilt? I couldn't tell. But I didn't care. You taught me how to survive, Dad, I continued, the words coming faster now. You taught me how to survive when I had no choice. But you forgot how to love. You forgot what family really is. I took a step forward, my eyes never leaving his. I'm not your item. I'm your lesson. I let that sink in for a moment. His mouth opened but no words came out. He looked at his wife, then at the boys, all of them still processing what I had just said. But I didn't wait for them to speak. I survived without you. I didn't need you to build me up, but I needed you to be there. I needed you to show up for me like a father. Not just when it's convenient. I paused and my voice softened, but the sting in it was undeniable. You made me into who I am, but you didn't do it out of love. You did it because you were too selfish to see me as anything other than an obstacle. Well, now you see. I don't need your approval anymore. And I sure don't need to help your kids. The ones who've always had everything. I stepped back, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, but the anger had started to leave me, replaced by a sense of calm satisfaction. I've built my own life, Dad. You don't get to walk in here and think you're still the one holding the keys. I turned to go back inside, the sound of their stunned silence ringing in my ears. But before I reached the door, I heard him speak, his voice shaky. I didn't know. I didn't turn around. Instead, I muttered, "You never did." And with that, I stepped inside, closing the door softly behind me, leaving them all out there to figure out the lesson they'd never been taught. The moment I closed the door behind me, I felt a rush of calm. For a second, everything was still. I didn't need to hear any more from them. The silence that followed was enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Through the thin glass of the door, I could see my dad's smile fade into something I had never seen from him before. Genuine surprise. His usual confidence, the arrogance that had once filled his posture, had completely drained away. His face turned pale, like a man who had just realized something he couldn't undo. He didn't say another word. Cynthia, his wife, leaned in and whispered something to him, though I couldn't hear it. But I could see her eyes darting toward the car, signaling that it was time to leave. I didn't need to hear her words to understand. The boys. They stood there awkwardly, their heads low, their eyes darting between their parents and the door I had just shut. I could see the shame on their faces. They had no idea what to make of what had just happened. But for once I felt nothing but indifference toward them. They were just collateral damage in a story that had nothing to do with them. As I stood there, feeling the weight of the moment settle into my bones, I heard the faint sound of tires crunching on gravel as they drove away. My dad's car, the same one that had been there when he kicked me out all those years ago, disappeared down the street. Later, as I was sitting in the living room, one of my neighbors, an older woman who had seen everything unfold from her porch across the street, came over. She knocked gently on my door, a sympathetic look on her face. "He came back," she said, her voice soft. "I saw him after you closed the door. He sat there right on your porch, just crying." I didn't know how to feel about that. My first instinct was to feel sorry for him, but I quickly stopped myself. He had a chance to be a father and he chose not to. He chose his new family, his new life, over me. I took a deep breath, looking out the window at the empty porch where everything had changed. I wasn't looking for revenge. What I wanted, what I had always wanted, was peace. And for the first time in my life I had it. Right there, on the same porch where they had once tried to beg me back into their lives. Peace. It was mine now. The porch was quiet now, the evening air cool and calming. I sat there alone, a steaming cup of tea in my hands, the warmth of it grounding me. The same porch where my father had once stood, where my heart had broken so many times, felt different now. I had forgiven him in a way. But it wasn't for him. It was for me. I forgave myself first. I forgave myself for the years I spent wondering why I wasn't enough. I forgave myself for carrying the weight of his abandonment for so long. I had to let go of that because if I didn't, it would have eaten me alive. Sitting there with the soft rustling of the wind in the trees, I finally realized I was free. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need his love or validation anymore. The absence of it, the emptiness I had once felt, didn't hurt me the way it used to. I had built a life, a good one, all on my own. I thought back to that moment when I handed him the receipt, the way his face had changed, how his pride cracked like glass. But even that didn't make me feel triumphant in the way I had expected. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about releasing myself from the chains of the past. It didn't matter what he thought. I had moved past it. I took a slow sip from my cup, letting the warmth spread through me. I was no longer the scared little girl who knocked on my aunt's door barefoot, with nothing but a bag of clothes and a broken heart. I was someone else now. Stronger. Better. Free. I smiled quietly to myself. He had taught me pain. But I turned it into power. And now, sitting here, I could finally say it with peace in my heart. I'm not bitter. I'm free.